Welcome everyone to our Parenting Through COVID-19 webinar. My name's Sophie Alawash and I'm here with my colleagues Natalie Gallarello and Leanne Cox. Normally we deliver these workshops face-to-face in schools and kindergartens and childcare centres, but at the moment in this current situation we are delivering our information through webinars. So I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we work and live and recognise their continuing connection to land, water and community. And we pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. So we are from the Parenting and Family Support Programs team in the Department of Human Services. And as I said, normally we go out and deliver information to parents and carers face-to-face. We have a number of workshops that we deliver. One is called My Child and Me, and the other one, the two main ones are Living with Young People. But today we have a webinar for you with some information. The information that we have is of a general parenting nature. We're not experts and we're not healthcare professionals. So please take the information that is useful and relevant to you. And we're also not experts in your children. You're the experts in your children. So please take the information that you feel is relevant for your family situation and that will be useful for your relationship with your children. So firstly, we'd like to acknowledge the uniqueness of the situation we're currently in. In the last few weeks and months, we've had a significant time of change for many of us and including our children as well. For us as parents, we've had changes to our work situations. We may have had children at home for extended periods. We may not be seeing our friends and family as much as we'd like. And our regular routines and activities that punctuate our lives have all been changed. So we wanted to stress today the importance of looking after yourself. And this is something that we often talk about in our other workshops is parents giving themselves permission to look after themselves. And that's one of the most important things we can do. And so a great first step is that you've joined us for this webinar today. So I'll just take you through the topics that we're going to go through. So Natalie's going to talk to us about predictability and routines. She's going to talk to us about creating traditions in our families and also about technology safety. I'm going to talk to you about how to talk to your children about COVID-19. And then Leanne will talk us through some information about understanding our child's behaviour. And then there'll be a quick summary at the end. So I'm going to hand over to Nat now.
Thanks, Sophie. So this unprecedented change that we're experiencing in our world and daily life is quite possibly something that we'll only ever see once in a lifetime. And the COVID-19 change is difficult to associate with for most of us because none of us or most of us haven't experienced anything like it before. And therefore we really can't draw on the experiences of others to get through it. This makes it more difficult for us to navigate given that we're all going through it for the first time together. So we've had changes in our work, in our school, how we shop, how we spend our weekends and how we socialise. And this type of change is affecting everyone worldwide. The important thing to remember with this change is that we're not alone and that we're all experiencing this together and that we are going to get through it. So COVID-19 can be experiencing, you can be experiencing many different feelings or emotions, while you're at home. And some of the things that you might be feeling might be scared or sad. You might be feeling worried, unable to cope, confused, anxious, powerless. You might have felt cut off and isolated and frustrated at the situation that we're all facing. But some of you might be feeling okay. And that's perfectly fine. And it's also important to remember that all of these feelings and emotions are perfectly normal. and that no two people will ever feel the same or manage these stresses in the same way, and that includes our children. And Leanne's going to talk to us a bit later about how your children may be showing if they're not coping, and she'll also give you some strategies of how to help with that. Identifying when you or someone in your family is stressed is essential for you to be able to support your family during this time. If you can see that stress levels are increasing, it gives you a really good opportunity to intervene before these stress levels become unmanageable. So once we've identified and we have some control of our stresses or our feelings, we're then able to be able to help ourselves and our children. So on the flip side of all of these, probably most of those were negative or not so great feelings and emotions. There, you might see this time of change through COVID as a really positive opportunity for you. You might see it as an opportunity for you to reconnect with your family. You might consider it as an opportunity to create new traditions and routines, to build on existing relationships, to do things you've wanted to do for a long time, and maybe learn new technology. And I know that, with the doing things that you've wanted to do for a long time, for me, that has been, cleaning out my wardrobes and preparing things to donate once all the donation shops open. Also, and learning new technology of how to use Zoom, how to stay connected with our families. So I'm sure that there's lots and lots of positive things that have come out of this time, and you might take this time to think about some of the positive things that you've seen benefit in with your family during this time of change. So we're going to have a look now at how we can support our family during this time and how we can look after ourselves as well. So predictability is important during a time of change, especially for children. When we create an environment that has regular routines and predictability, this creates a sense of calmness. And it's especially important during this time of change because change is happening on a daily basis for us as a family and for our children. Let's have a look at how we can create some predictable environments for our families and for ourselves during this time of change with family meetings and routines and traditions, and also the use of technology, which has changed significantly during this time of change. And we also need to remember just now that the way that we use technology is quite different. And we're going to have a look at all of those three points in the coming slides. So let's have a look at some family meetings. So family meetings can sound really formal, but they don't have to be. They're really just an opportunity and a time for us to connect and reconnect with our family. And having planned time together, especially on a regular basis, is a great way for your family to talk about upcoming events and changes in life, or just what's happening and what's going on for everyone. And it's a time to check in with everyone and see how they're coping. So it's also a time to create connections, and it's also a time for family members to have opportunities to contribute and feel as though they have a role in decision-making process about the family. This can also help with problem solving, and it can give every individual member of your family new opportunities to learn ways to work things out together. So especially if strategies for problem solving are discussed within your family, then they're more likely to be followed because everyone's on the same page. Therefore, it also empowers our family members to feel as though they're equally contributing as family members and members of your family unit. Something else we need to consider is that we're making sure that everyone has their own space. And this is especially important given our family members are spending lots of time together while living in close proximity to each other and under one roof. So tempers are probably a little bit shorter than usual, and we don't have the ability to get up and leave and create that space for ourselves because we're a little bit more isolated and confined to the one space. But if we can agree as a family on spaces that are safe havens for individuals so that they have their own place for solitude, this can help in the well-being of the family members and also contribute to creating a calm home environment. This also will bring everyone together. So all of these points bring our families closer together by reconnecting and connecting to our families regularly. So let's have a look how we can create routines and why routines are important and positive for families. So for safety and belonging, so routines create an organised and predictable home environment where all family members can feel safe and secure, especially during times of change and stress. And if we have skills and responsibilities like chores, it does help to create a sense of responsibility for individuals. And it also develops basic life skills which children can learn through all aspects of their life. Sharing these responsibilities through each family member also ensures that the load is shared through everybody and that everyone contributes to the family and to the house or the household. So these responsibilities that we give our children and the people living in our house need to be age appropriate and the expectations need to be reasonable. So for example, I wouldn't expect my 18-month-old to be able to load or unload a dishwasher. However, my 7-year-old is very able and capable of doing that. So it's about knowing what is developmentally appropriate for your child and what they're capable of. So the other important thing about chores and responsibilities is that we need to monitor these to make sure everyone's pulling their weight and to make sure that that it's working and that everyone knows what their jobs are and that everything is being done. Healthy habits. So these are great. These routines provide our children ways of developing healthy habits through brushing hair and teeth and exercising, washing your hands after you go to the toilet. And these are lifelong skills that we want our children to take with them everywhere, when they go to school, when they're at their friend's house, when they go to their grandparents' house, and especially now given the importance of washing our hands to maintain that safety of spreading of germs. So what makes a good daily routine? Well, routines need to be well planned. So everyone needs to understand their role and see their role as important and reasonable and that it's fair. And family meetings are a great opportunity to revisit these regularly. Each family member and each family and their situation will vary. So therefore it's not a one size fits all. So your routine needs to be specific to your family's needs. What works for my family may not necessarily work for yours. So that's where it's important to use your family meetings to work out what routine works best for your family. Good routines are really flexible, and when needed, they have really good communication. And the foundations of these can be set up at your family meetings as well, where everyone has the opportunity to communicate and share their ideas and opinions. That routines become regular part of everyday life, and they actually become embedded in our daily practices to the point where we actually don't know that we're in a routine because it just happens. So that's what makes it really, what makes routines really important in our families. So predictability is another point to think about, and that everything happens in the same order. So the timing might change, but the order's the same. And having this routine in place and the flexibility and predictability of our routines helps to create that environment where we're creating that safety. So through flexibility and predictability, along with good communication, routines become a part of everyday life. And like I said before, it's to the point that we don't even know that we're doing it. Which brings me to traditions. So creating traditions has most likely probably already happened in your homes, and only now they're more important and they're more visible, or they've become more visible as ways of connecting and staying connected with your loved ones. So you need to try and find things that are agreed on and discussed in your family meeting times. So this way, everyone knows the meaning behind it and why they're meaningful for each individual person, and they understand the importance of them. This is another way that we can connect with our family and build on our relationships. And these traditions may occur in our family at regular times, like daily or weekly or monthly. So some of the suggestions that we've got on our slide are Sunday morning beach walks, Sunday roast. My family used to get together. I have 3 households, and we all used to get together on a Sunday night with my parents and have our family dinner. Now we can't do that anymore. So what we do is we all agree on the meal that we're all going to cook, and we cook that at each house. And then through Zoom, we share our meal together and talk about our week and what's coming, and share that time like we would ordinarily. So you might do some of these things on our list, or you might find that you've created your own traditions with your family, and they might have already been existing, or you might find that there's new ones that you've created during this time of change through COVID. So now we're going to have a look at technology. Now, technology has changed quite a lot during the time of COVID-19, and it's important to understand that it's very different. Technology use is very different for children and for adults. So we're starting to use technology now for work and schooling, and also to keep socially connected with friends and family, and as a form of entertainment. So it's okay to relax the rules. So we've had quite strict rules, or some families have quite strict rules that they've put into place about technology, but it's okay to relax the rules at the moment, and maybe just redefine the rules and expectations for a while to take the pressure off yourself, because we need to use our technology for a lot more now than we previously did. So a good time to discuss what works for your family is during these family meetings. The E-Safety Commission website that you can see at the bottom of the slide is a great resource, and it can help your family discussions about technology, the use of technology, and one of the resources that you'll find is the Family Technology Agreement. And this works especially well for younger children, and it was developed in conjunction with ABC Kids. So the top 10 tips that I'm about to show you were taken directly from this website. So the first one you'll see is building an open and trusting relationship around technology. So keep communication open and be supportive, so children know that they can come to you when they think something doesn't seem right or something's gone wrong. Co-view and play with your child online. This helps you to know and understand what they're doing and what they're watching, either in apps or gaming or websites. And it's also a good opportunity to have meaningful conversations about safety and what to look out for. Building good habits. So help your child to develop digital intelligence. And this is about social and emotional skills, such as respect and empathy and critical thinking and responsible behaviour and resilience. So it's about practicing being a good online citizen. So next we have empowering your child. And this is, where possible, empowering your child to make safe and sensible and wise decisions for themselves, rather than you telling them what to do. So try to provide them with the strategies for dealing with negative online experiences that will build their confidence and their resilience, so that they're able to deal with these situations by themselves. Number 5 is use devices in an open area of the home, and this can help you to manage and be aware of who your child's interacting with through phones, tablets and smart TVs or gaming consoles and other connected devices. We need to set limits that there's a balance in time for screens for online and offline activities. So the family technology plan can help you to manage the expectations around when technology is used or when it's allowed. And you could even fill in the tech agreement, and that, like I mentioned before, that's on the eSafety Commission website. And I find that that's been really helpful in my family to set some limits around screen time. Number 7 is know the apps and games and the social media that your children are using. So make sure that they're age appropriate and learn how to limit messaging or online chat and the location sharing functions within the app or within the games that can expose your child to contact and disclose their location. So you can refer to the eSafety guide on the eSafety website, and that will give you information of how to do that. And check your privacy settings. So know that what privacy settings you have for each individual game and app your child is using, and make sure that their profiles are turned onto the strictest settings. This way you can restrict who can contact your child, or you can ask them to check in with you before your child accepts new friends. 2 more, we've got number 9, use available technologies to set up parental controls on devices. These can filter harmful content and monitor your child's use and limit or block their time on connected devices or functions. And these are for cameras and in-app purchases. So it's important that you do set up all of those parental controls on your devices. The last one is about being alert of signs and of distress and knowing where you are to go for more advice and support. You know your child the best, and you'll be able to know if your child is not coping or something has happened, because you'll be able to know a change. You'll be able to see a change in your child's behaviour. But it's important to make sure that you do report any harmful content that your child may let you know of or that you notice. But there's also supports out there for your children, so they can ring Kids Helpline so that they can actually talk to someone and get support as well. And you can go onto the esafety.gov.au website and you can find all of those details on there. So that's all from me, and I'm going to now hand over to Sophie, who's going to talk to you about how to talk to your children about COVID-19.
Thanks, Nat. So yeah, I'm going to take you through a few slides about talking to your children or child about this current situation. So as we all know, children pick up information all the time, and this situation is no different really. They will be picking up information from a variety of sources, including school or kindergarten, from friends, from television, from family, from what they notice when they go out. For example, if they go to the supermarket and see empty shelves, they walk past shops and restaurants and they're closed, or sometimes they might see people wearing face masks in the street. So they'll be picking up on all of these cues and piecing together all of these different pieces of information. And they'll also be getting information from us. So both verbally, what we're saying to them and what they might hear us saying to other people, but also non-verbally. Children can very easily pick up how we're feeling and how we're responding. And they may pick up on our stress and our anxiety if we're experiencing that. So it's important for us, or some of the most important things for our children is that we provide them with age-appropriate factual information. And for us as parents, it's good to pick 1 or 2 credible sources of information and let those be the only places that we go to get our information. And it's also important to continue to provide our children with reassurance and to help them feel safe and secure. And Natalie's talked about other things about predictability and creating that sense of safety, but also in discussions that we have, it's important to do that as well. So in terms of having a conversation about COVID-19 with our children, or it can be used for other situations as well. You know, one of the most important things for us before we start these conversations is to make sure that we're centred. Natalie at the start talked through different emotions that we might be feeling. And, you know, this is a continual period of change, or a period of continual change, it seems. And that alone can have a profound impact on us. So before we talk to our children, it's important that we're as centred as we can be. And so whatever it is that we need to do to be able to be in that place. So it might be making sure that we exercise every day, have a cup of tea outside, have 5 minutes to ourselves, whatever it is that we know that we need to be as centred as we can in this situation. And a good way to start the conversation is by asking what our child knows about COVID-19. And from that, we'll get a good understanding about what they know, also what they're thinking about, and any concerns they might have. We want to use just a couple of credible sources of information to make sure that we're up to date with the latest developments, and that we provide our children with age-appropriate information. So for younger children, it might only be that we tell them that it's unusual for children to get it, that things have stopped or closed to slow the spread of the virus, that there are lots of smart people working on this, and we're doing what we can to help by staying at home, washing our hands, wiping down surfaces, you know, definitely staying home if we're sick. And that might be all that we need to tell them at this stage. And we want to give them enough information to satisfy their curiosity without overloading them. So Justin Coulson, who you may have heard of, uses a good analogy for this. He says that if a child comes to you asking for a glass of water, we just need to fill the glass. There's no need to turn on the fire hose. And that's the same with information. We need to give our children enough information so they feel they've had their questions answered, but not so much that they feel overwhelmed or scared or anxious. And it can help children to feel that they have some agency to be able to do something. So we can talk to them about what they can do and what we're doing as a family. So that might be the frequent hand washing, wiping down benches, trying not to touch our face, by maintaining social distancing and staying home. And we need to model this behaviour as much as we can. We talk in our other workshops a lot about role modelling behaviour and how we need to be the models, be the role models of the sorts of behaviour that we want to see in our children. And it's the same in this situation as well. And we can also talk to them about what they can do to help others. So maybe a neighbour or a grandparent they're not seeing. It can be very empowering for children to feel like they're able to do something to contribute and to help. So just some key things to consider. Turn off the news, turn off the TV. It's a good practice not to have the TV or the news on with continual updates coming on, because this can, you know, for adults and for children as well, increase anxiety and stress levels. Realise that it's okay not to know the answer, and to tell our children that we don't know, but that we'll get back to them. We'll go and find out and get back to them. For older children, we can look up the information together. But honesty is always important in conversations, and especially now where it feels like there can be a lot of uncertainty. Honesty is very important in part of these conversations, as part of these conversations. And we can use these conversations to empower children to work out what they can do to help, as I mentioned before, but also, as Nat talked about, using this time as an opportunity to do things that you haven't done or been wanting to do, or try new things. It's the same for our children. They might want to use this time to do things they haven't done, like learning how to ride a bike, or writing a letter to a friend, or learning how to cook something. I know for my elder daughter, she's been using this time to cook things on her own, which she's been very proud about. It's been a lot of cupcakes and toffee, but that's okay. She's been using the time, figuring out how to do these things, and very proud of her achievements. So there are good ways, good things that we can do to empower ourselves in this time. And you know, coming together and talking as a family about concerns and worries. Natalie talked about having family meetings, which is a great thing to do. And this provides us with opportunities where we can talk and share our feelings, and provide answers to questions and try and solve problems together as much as we can. So they're just some things, key things to think about around talking to our children about COVID-19. And I'm going to hand over to Leanne now, who's going to talk to us about how we can respond to some tricky behaviours.
Thank you, Sophie. Yeah, so now we're going to have a look at understanding children's behaviour. But first we want to have a look at stress and how that may actually affect your child and you and your child's behaviour. So as Nat was talking about all those emotions at the beginning, you know, during this COVID period of change, and we're constantly changing, it could even be that other situations where there's some change or some major things going on with our families that can cause some anxiousness, can cause you to be scared or your child to be scared, where you could feel cut off or isolated, frustrated, sad, worried, or you could be feeling okay. So there's lots of those emotions that come around. But if you're having some of those more negative emotions, we have to look at what that does, and that is actually producing stress. So there's 3 types of stress that we can experience, and the first one is positive stress. So positive stress is that day-to-day stress that we have every day. It's when we have to get up in the morning, we have to get ready, get the kids ready, we have to get dressed and be out by 8 o'clock so that we're at school by 8:30 and then we're at work at 9. That's actually everyday stress that keeps us going. It's not there all the time. It goes up and down throughout the day when we need to get things done. I'm rushing for the bus. There's a little bit of stress of, you know, am I going to make it? Quickly, let's get there. So those types of stresses are day-to-day and perfectly normal stresses that we have. The second stress that we could experience is tolerable stress. And exactly like the word says, tolerable, means that it might have increased a little bit, it might be there a little bit longer, but it is only temporary, and we are doing that within supportive relationships. So that might mean you might have a partner, you might have your parent. For children, it means that they have their family with them. It could mean that you have access to services that can support you, your GP, health services, those types of things that can help us through that stress. So as we go through that tolerable stress, it might be there a little bit longer, it might have increased a bit, but we have those relationships to help us through. The third stress is toxic stress. Now, this is where it gets a little bit not too good. Toxic stress is where it's chronic, which means it's really amplified, and we don't have those supportive relationships like we do with tolerable stress. So what happens there is with any stress, we produce a little bit of cortisol. So that chemical goes into our body and makes us move and groove. It's like a survival chemical there. And that's okay in little bits, but when we have lots and lots of cortisol, like we do with toxic stress, it can actually be very harmful to our bodies. So toxic stress, it's chronic, and it's actually caused through, and we don't have those supportive relationships to help us through that. And that's where we need to get some help. So get some professional help there, whether it's your GP, your local health service, sometimes some of the helplines, but that's where we need some help for that one. So when we have all this stress can actually lead to some anxiety and worry. So anxiety and worry can be seen in our child's behaviour. So for children, they will actually act it out rather than tell you that they are feeling anxious and worried. So these are things that we need to keep an eye out for. So when we go into children's behaviour, children's feelings in the current reality of COVID-19 and all the changes that are going on can be similar to adults, but they show their feelings in actions rather than words. They may not be able to tell us. And the younger the child, the more likely it's going to be actions. So all children may react to this situation in different ways. All children are different, and they all take on a different way of expressing it. So some children might be actually coping okay, all's fine, and others may actually be feeling the stress of the situations that they're in. And especially seeing they've come out of those being at home, they may have been homeschooled, they've been kind of locked down to their house, even though they may have been able to go for walks, but they still won't be able to play with their friends, see families, and now they're moving back to school and they're in the school environment again, and they've got to re-establish relationships with their peer group, so that can actually be stressful in itself as well. So emotions and stress can build up. When this happens, so when these feelings build up, they do something that we call flip their lid. And this is where the emotions have built up so much that the emotions take over and the thinking part of their brain disconnects. So they're not able to think because they're just so full of emotions. And this can come out as certain behaviours. So they could be having a tantrum, or they could be upset, or they could be getting angry and hitting out. So behaviour is communication. So this is what we have to really, really remember as parents. When we see behaviour, your children are communicating a need that they need to have met. Now, we might not agree with that need, but they're still communicating that, and that's what we need to think about. So when we go to our next slide, we've got our parent detective iceberg here. So what we'd like to think about behaviours is that's what we see. This is the tip of the iceberg. We see that little tip sticking out of the water of an iceberg, and that's the behaviour that we see. But what's actually going on? What's going on underneath? Underneath the surface, that's where an iceberg is the biggest. That's where there's all these things going on. So it's really important for us to understand that there is a need going on underneath that behaviour. And it's up to us as the parent detectives to try and work out what that is and how we can best support that need. What can we do to help our child in that situation? And most of the time it's about connecting. I see that you are hurt. I see that you are frightened. I see that you are scared. It's just, we might not always agree what they're doing, and we don't have to be judge, jury, executioner. It's just about understanding that there's something more going on underneath. So if we go over to have a look at our iceberg, we're actually going to have a look at a situation where it happens all the time in families. Children are fighting over toys. But what's actually going on? We've walked in and they are fighting over a toy, and that can actually make us feel, oh, what's going on? You know, they're behaving badly. But what's actually going on? So they could be frustrated about being in the house all the time. They could be frustrated about sharing, playing together with their sibling or their friend. They're bored, they're lonely, they're stuck inside. They've got lots of energy they need to burn off and they haven't been able to do that. They might need their own space. They might need that little bit of time where this is just for me. They may have heard something on the news earlier or heard somebody talking about something that may have actually caused them to be a bit anxious and worried. And they could actually feel scared, and they could actually want to play with friends. It might be as simple as, well, I don't really want to play with this person, I want to play with my friends. They could be tired, they could be hungry, there could be a whole range of things that are going on. So just by using some of those words there, we've given a whole different reason for what's going on with the fighting with the toys. So it might not just be about, I want that toy. There's all these other things coming on, and they're communicating that through their behaviour. So when we have a look at responding to this behaviour, what can we do as parents? So we've come up, when we do our face-to-face programs, we share this with parents. And this is our positive approaches to guiding children's behaviour, and it's based on the Parenting SA Parent Easy Guide. And you can find that on their website, just Google Parenting SA. So we call this our Parenting C CPR. So this is a little cheat sheet for us to think about when something's going on. So we walk in, our kids are fighting over their toys. The first thing we need to do is pause and calm ourselves. And if we go back to what Sophie was saying, it's really important that we're centred, that we're calm, and that we're able to approach it in a very calm way. Because if we're already losing flipping our lid before we approach the kids, we just escalate the situation. We're not actually helping them to calm down, because that's what we need to do. We then need to help them calm so that we can actually work through what's going on. So we can use some strategies such as deep breathing. So practice, as soon as we control our breathing and breathe in, 1, 2, 3, breathe out, we're actually helping to calm down. So breathing strategies are really important. We use things like Hoberman balls where children can pull it in and out and help control their breathing. Time in is a very important one that we can do, where we're staying close to our child so that they know that we're there and that we're connected, and we can help them to regulate their emotions and close their lid. So that's a really important one. Next we go on to is connect. So Dr. Laura Markham says it's important to connect before you correct. Show you understand your child's perspective. Listen to what your child has to say. Doesn't mean we have to agree with them, but we listen and we show empathy. I see that you are feeling really angry, frustrated, upset. It's hard when your brother won't share your favourite toy with you. If children feel you are on their side, they will feel safe to engage with you. So they'll come along with you on what you're talking about. Behind all challenging behaviour is a feeling, need or desire the child is trying to meet in the best way they know how at this stage of their development. So it's really important that we understand that at their stage of development. So from here we move into problem solve. Instead of thinking consequences, so instead of thinking a punishment, we think problem solving. What can we do for the children to learn what to do next time? What can you do next time? What could you do differently? What else would work? What could you change? So we're giving them an opportunity to learn rather than feel like they're in trouble. So the next one would be repair. So how can we fix this? We can drag our kids up and say sorry, and they go, I'm sorry, but they're not really sorry, and it doesn't feel like they're sorry. It's great if they can say sorry when they do feel sorry. So it's about talking to them about how they can fix something. How can they make amends? What can they do to make it up to each other? And it might be, well, I'm just going to stay away from them for the rest of the day because, you know, and that's okay if that's what they need to do. So it's about, or they might say, oh, let's have a hug. I'm going to say I'm sorry, or here, you can play with the toy. So give them an opportunity to come up with an idea and some strategies of doing things differently, and make that plan of what they could do next time. What could you do differently, and how can you make amends? How can you fix this? So that's our little parenting C CPR, but it's really important that we make sure that we understand that our expectations are in line with our children's age and their development. Really important. So the older children, we can talk a little bit older. Younger ones, we might need to support them a lot more to get the ideas. So, supporting children to cope through COVID-19, we've got some strategies here. So understanding children are different. All children are different. In one family, we will have differences. Twins can be different. Different temperaments, personalities, characteristics. Be supportive. Show we support our children and what they're doing. Give extra love and attention where we can. They need to feel connected to you. They need to feel loved and safe. Play and relax. Lots of play, lots of relaxation time. Play is really important for children to learn social skills and how to interact in the world. Create a safe and predictable environment. As Nat said, routines, knowing what's happening is really important for children to feel safe and secure. Help children to stay connected, not just with you, but maybe with the wider family. And technology has been playing a big part in that with FaceTime. Communicate information, as Sophie was saying, age-appropriate information, enough to satisfy their curiosity. Look after yourself. Really important to take care of yourself. If you don't take care of yourself, it's very hard to take care of others. And as we've been talking about, role modelling. Role model how you would like to react to things, how you like to see your children react to things, because they're going to copy us. So that's really important, that we show empathy and patience. We show, I understand, I see how you are feeling. Being calm. Our number one message through most of our workshops is practice being calm yourself and how to calm yourself. Be clear about limits and boundaries. Really important that children know what it is we expect of them. We can keep them busy. Have lots of things in your toolbox that you can pull out for them to do. Let them have some control. They don't have to have 1,000 choices. Would you like to do this or this? 2 choices. Would you like to wear this shirt or that shirt? some sort of control helps them to feel like they're important, they have worth. Have fun, always important to have fun. When we're having fun, we're releasing all those wonderful chemicals that help counteract the cortisol caused through stress. So lots of good fun, lots of physical activity. Focus and notice the positive. So this is something that we think is really important. We quite often notice when our kids aren't doing what we want them to do, or we're saying, no, don't, leave that, shouldn't have. We're very, very quick to do that. And when they're doing all the things we want them to do, we go, well, we're not going to interrupt them, we'll leave them. And sometimes we do have to do that. But it's always good to let them know, I love the way you're playing together. I can see how fantastic it is when you share your toys. I really appreciate that you're sitting quietly together. So it might be something that you really, really want them to be doing. If they hear that if they hear all the positive information, then they're more likely to do that again. So we always say, and Dr. Laura Markham says as well, 5 positives to 1 negative, really important. And talk about hope. Times of stress are temporary. We're going to move past this COVID situation and all the changes, and there might be something else that pops up. But there's always things we can do. And we could always have a COVID hope list for after, when we're able to do everything we want to be able to do. And it might be, okay, I want to go to the zoo, I want to play with my friends, I want to go to Fiji. Well, Fiji might not be possible, but we could pop that on a list, couldn't we? And we could look at that later. We could have a hope list. Hope's really important. So that's me for now, and I'll pass you back to Sophie.
Thanks, Leanne. So just to recap on what we've been through in this webinar, Nat talked to us about predictability and the safety and security that children get through having that predictable home environment. She talked to us about family connection and how we can really enhance our family connection through things such as creating family traditions, through having family meetings, from taking that time to spend talking together and doing things, sharing activities together. I talked about how we can talk to our children about COVID-19 and some of the things we need to remember in those conversations. And Leanne talked to us about being a parent detective and what we can do to help our children with some maybe challenging, tricky behaviour that they're displaying, and parenting C CPR, which is a great thing to remember. So that's the content of our webinar. If you have any questions that have come up for you through the information that you've seen in this webinar, then our email address is on the screen now. Please feel free to email us at this address. And Leanne mentioned in her section about her Parenting SA, which is another great website which has a lot of information. They produce the Parenting Easy Guides, or PEGs, and they have a huge range of PEGs on a wide variety of topics. So check that out if you'd like some parenting information. So thank you for joining us today. We've really enjoyed putting together this information for you, and we hope that you've been able to pick out some information that will be useful for you and your family. So thank you very much.